Quickly talk about progressing through the initial games, getting your team back on the field, playing some games, and now moving into the knockout stage.
Well, I think it's been good. I mean, look, our 1-1-1 record is probably, it's probably indicative of how we played. I think we certainly could have played better against Chicago, but San Jose was a tough match. Obviously against Vancouver things came together for us, but overall it's been good. I enjoyed the quality of the games. I enjoy getting the guys back out on the field. It's been good.
Thank you. We'll go straight into questions. The first one is Masvita Morare. Masvita, your line is now open.
Hey, Brian. Christian Roldan mentioned how Nouhou and Jordan Morris had this interchange play where they're covering for each other. How has the team, that type of covering for each other in offense and defense, improved the team and giving you some confidence going into a knockout game?
Well, we don't want Jordan to play left back. That's number one. So I didn't hear Christian's answer, but I'm sure he's smart enough to understand that Jordan's strength is going forward. Now, as far as the whole team is concerned, helping each other, yeah, that's been part of who we are for a long time. I think the team always helps each other. I think that's one of the qualities of the squad.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Ari Liljenwald. Ari, your line is now open.
Hey, Coach. Jordan was obviously extremely dominant against Vancouver. He's had some great games over the years, but I'm curious, is that the most dominant single game shift you've seen him put in since you've been coaching him? And is there kind of another stride that he's been hitting lately?
I'm not going to rate Jordan on singular games. I think it's a little unfair to the player. I would certainly say you could go back to the Dallas playoff game. You could go to other games. There's certainly a ton of games where he has been influential. You have to remember it's a team sport. Jordan would be the first one sitting here to say, my teammates helped me. I couldn't do that without Nico's final pass. I couldn't have scored. Kelvin getting him behind early in the game against Vancouver kind of boosted his confidence a little bit. So I wouldn't try and rate Jordan's performance other than the fact that it was very, very good and he was very effective.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Jason Mitchell. Jason, your line is now open.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, conditioning and training have been two of the biggest storylines going back to March. With 3 games under your belt now, I'm wondering how you would grade the approach y'all took, what you're hearing from your sports science guys about how guys are doing physically, and I guess maybe if late July Brian would have any advice for mid-March Brian.
We've been happy with our trainings. We were able to do some, bigger group trainings when we were in Seattle already. So I think that's been good. Obviously, it's a little different cadence, having to, share a bunch of fields and you don't have your own gym. And, there's certain things that are different or challenging playing here in Orlando with all of the teams. But overall, I think the fitness level is now pretty good. After 3 games, that gives them all a good taste of the physical, requirements that's needed to win down here. So overall, I'd say we're good.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Miki Turner. Miki, your line is now open.
Thanks, Coach, for doing this. Both Christian and Shane referenced some of the internal competition that has been a benefit to the team, especially with some of the injuries. So I'm just wondering how you've kind of seen that battle for places play out and how that's benefited the team.
Well, it happens in every team across every sport. You need to have competition to make sure that the starters are being pushed by the guys underneath. Some of our young guys have to do a good job of, making sure they belong, that they earn the respect of the starters. I think that's a challenge for our young players. Are they at the level yet? Can they get to the level? That's the question they have to answer. And then, for guys like, Alex, for Shane, for some of the mid-range guys. We lost Harry Shipp, who was a really good piece for us, always dependable. All those guys are important when you're going on, a long MLS season.
Great, thank you. Our next question will go to John Rojas. John, your line is now open.
Thank you. Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the time. When it comes to the preparation of the game, I mean, these two teams, LAFC and Seattle Sounders, have a clear philosophy to approach the way each one plays. So with everything that has happened, it really matters to look at the last meeting in an elimination game, or is just basically focusing on these games during the time in Orlando?
I think you have to have a balance. I mean, there's certain lessons that we learned back in November, but Bob can watch that same film and say, okay, what could my team done in that moment to make sure we won the game? So it's all about the right balance. The game in November is a long time ago. We're past that. We're looking forward. Obviously, Vela's not here. That changes them a little bit. They've had some other minor changes. So we'll look at their last 3 games here in Orlando and try and take most of our examples from those 3 games.
Thank you. A reminder to our media members to please click the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen if you have a question. Again, please click the raise hand screen at the bottom of the screen. We have a question from Jada Evans. Jada, please go ahead.
Coach, I wanted to ask a little bit about the development of Nouhou. He's been playing well in this tournament, so wanted to get your opinion about what's changed in him or what's been working for him this season.
Well, he's getting some more playing time, so that always helps development. He's worked hard with Jimmy Traore to work on some of the deficiencies that he's had or the areas of improvement. You know, I think you see a really good young player that still has room to grow. He is not the finished product yet. A lot of people are saying he's been really, really super good, and he has. Credit to him, he has been good. But there still is room for improvement. His final pass, and it's not just the technical side of his final pass, but it's the decision-making that he needs in the final third, needs to be a little bit better. But obviously, we are very pleased with his performances so far.
Thank you, Coach. And our last question will go to Fred Altieri. Fred, your line is now open.
Hello, Coach. My question is, you guys are the defending champs, yet due to the current situation with the schedule and everything, it seems like you're not able to, you and your fans and the whole organization is not able to get your just due. I don't know if it seems that way, but in other words, you would have been 17 matches, perhaps you'll be able to play them this season, but you would have been going into other stadiums and not receiving accolades, but getting some sort of respect from the other players and fans. How do you and your players feel about that? And how can you get some sort of satisfaction out of what you accomplished last season?
Well, I think that comes with reflection. When you look back on the season in 2019, we certainly accomplished a very major milestone for this franchise. Winning MLS Cup at home is the pinnacle of our sport. So we celebrated that very well, by the way, Fred. It was a great day in Seattle. So I think we've had the opportunity to celebrate with our fans. Now, when you go into other stadiums across the land, you know, I get that. Sometimes people give you respect. Certainly I see that. But I'll tell you a little story about the Chicago match. So when Chicago beat us down here in Orlando, they were very, very pleased. And they were pleased because it was Wiki's first win and, you know, the club and moving forward. But they had just beaten the champs. And there was some chatter going back and forth about how they had just had a good performance. It was their first win on the season. They had beaten the defending champs. And so you run up against, even in this, you know, shortened, different season, that teams always seem to get up to play for big games, and they want to, you know, unseat the current champions. So we get that a lot. Maybe it's not the respect and adulation in your question, but we certainly get the opposite of that. We get teams that are hungry to beat us.
It looks like we have one final question from Mickey Turner. Mickey, your line is now open.
Thanks, Coach. Just wanted to ask about talking with Bob Bradley. This is obviously the first meeting that you guys will have had since the Western Conference Final, and the obviously quotes after the game. So I was just wondering, have you talked to him about that incident, and do you expect that he's going to have some extra motivation facing you based on what happened?
We settled that back in January at a MLS media event that we had in January. There is no animosity. Those were just words between two competitive guys after a game. That's not as big a deal as some media members took. Bob is a very extremely talented, good coach. He doesn't need to use me as motivation to win games. He's had that within him. The organization, LAFC, has done a good job of, being motivated to win games on their own.